Randall, thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me, Steve. Great to be here.
Yes. We've been talking you up a little bit. Daniel even came up with a nickname for you.
Talk to me, Daniel. What do you
Your new name is the Oracle of Options.
Yes. The Options Oracle.
Yeah.
Options, what have you? You know.
Certainly been called a lot worse, so I'll take that.
Yeah. Well, could you just kind of give us a quick synopsis of your story? You're from Texas. You're kind of a Renaissance man, a pilot into real estate, and now you do stocks. Very interesting life. Could you just kind of run through maybe a couple minutes of your history?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I do have a bit of an unusual story. Born in Houston, Texas, raised my family there. Grew up working at driving concrete trucks, $1.10 an hour, which seemed like a lot of money, but 90 some odd hours a weekend. And I thought it was great. But mostly I was doing that also in that we were going skiing. Me and a couple of buddies were going up to Steamboat Springs and skiing. So we would literally work 7 months and work incredible overtime and what have you, and making enough money to go up there and go skiing. That was one of our dreams. Prior to that, I'd raced motocross, the same couple of buddies. And, we all had broken bones in every part of our body, me more than anybody, because I had a motto of either win or crash. And so I did a lot of crashing. I did a little bit of winning. Actually, I raced for 3 years and never came in less than fifth because, my motto was go for it. So we went to Steamboat for a softer landing. And anyway, that's kind of my history through the teenage years. And I came back. I skied for 7 years, actually became a professional mogul skier, skied with the likes of Jack Taylor, 3-time world champion. And I got pretty far up there, but after skiing with Jack Taylor, the world champion, he'd moved to Steamboat. The first run that I stood up there and watched him go down, and there were about 50 people standing up at the top of this run called Whiteout that we'd go down. And I looked at him, why is nobody skiing? And then he took off. And, it was like witnessing Tiger Woods and Michael Jordan, it was insane. Yeah. And all I could think, I wasn't worried about who was going to go next. That's why no one was moving, right? I was thinking, I got to go back to Houston and make a living. I could never be this guy in my wildest dreams, right? So I said, what the hell, I'll be the next guy off. And I did a run. I made it all the way to the bottom, and he nodded at me, which I thought was pretty good from a world champion. And the season ended, and I packed up and went back to Houston and went back to work for that same company and rose up through the ranks, became superintendent. The company grew through the 60s and 70s. And we had a couple hundred employees and 9 plants. And so I got the corporate experience, but the company went out of business in the 80s. And so I, having not gone to college, wasn't quite sure what to do. And I decided to become a contractor. I'd been around home builders and commercial builders. I was a concrete salesman at one point. So I knew a lot of those guys. And I kind of wanted to build homes, but I didn't know how to get into it. I didn't have any money. So I started out as a contractor, and I started a painting company and then a roofing company and did that for a number of years. Then I bought an old house.
You went from foundation all the way up to the roof.
Yeah, I bought an old house, Steve, and the idea was to renovate it and teach myself about every phase. So I had a retired guy that used to run some framing crews, and he knew everything. So he kind of coached me through, the starter level electrical, plumbing, sheetrock, drywall, paint, you name it. And I did renovate the house and sold it at a profit. And that really got me going because I thought, okay, now I got a way to make some money. Maybe I can become a home builder. I didn't want to be a contractor my whole life. I knew that, but it was paying the bills. So anyway, I kept doing that and bought some more houses, renovated them. And eventually the market got so good that I couldn't find any deals on old houses. And I'd been contracting for about, 6 years. And I'd started buying some rental property as well with the profits. And I met a guy, in fact, I bought a rental property from him, and he ended up becoming my partner. He's an old guy, drove an old car, and I bought 2 houses from him. And, you know, he didn't seem like a wealthy guy, but once I got to know him, became his partner, and he drove me around to look at his apartment complexes and his commercial property. And turns out he was worth 50 million bucks net worth.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and pretty wild. Really unique character, really unique character. The thing I remember most about Big John is what everybody called him, is he was a real frugal guy for having 50 million. I'd known him about a year, and I'd go down and smoke cigars with him and soak him like, you know, like a sponge. I wanted to learn everything he knew, and he did become my mentor in real estate. But went down there one day, we were smoking a cigar, and he goes, "Hey, it's your birthday, right?" I went, "Yeah." And he goes, "Hang on." He's a man of few words, right? And he comes back out with this corduroy coat. And I'm looking at it thinking, okay, it doesn't even look new. and he was real proud when he says, "Yeah, I got it at a flea market for $7." All right, John, thank you very much.
Yeah, sounds great.
You know, but that's just the guy he was. His whole life centered around money and doing deals. His family didn't like him. His kids didn't like him. So, you know, it was a really interesting mentor to have. But when I wanted to start building houses, he threw his financial statement at me. It was about 30 pages long. And I looked at the, you know, first page net worth, 52 million, whatever, went, holy crap. Okay, well, you know, John, what do you want? And he said, "Well, just, you know, give me half the profits." So, okay. So obviously you're not going to get turned down at a bank with a cosigner worth 50 mil. And, you know, went out and found a piece of property within 2 days and started building houses. So I did that for 20 some odd years in Houston, worked up to doing $1 million houses and just 2 subdivisions, real high end stuff, and making 15%, so 150 grand a pop, and was taking most of that and buying rental property. I ended up with about 82 houses. And so I did both. And the home building I did love, but it was a tough job. You know, it's kind of 14-hour days. Yeah, that combined with rental property, although eventually I had a manager and maintenance crew. I had my own management company. So that's what I did, and it worked well. I got wealthy by the time I was, you know, mid-30s, and was pretty well set. But I had a love of the market, and I never could shake it. I started when I was, I guess, 28 back in '79. So now I've been doing it 40 years. But back then I got into it with 30 grand, knew nothing, got a broker at Merrill Lynch. This was back with no internet. You phoned your orders in, and so you'd phone an order in and you'd wait, and about 20 minutes later I'd call and go, "Hey, you know, are we in this stock?" And he'd go, "I don't know, let me check." And
Wow.
he'd go, "Yeah,
What a concept.
You know, right? Can you believe it, Daniel? It's crazy compared to where we are now, right? A 1 second click. So I remember the first time he goes, "Well, you're down like, you know, $1,000. I was, "Oh my God, let's sell it," right? You know, quick. So he sells it. We got another 20-minute lag. He calls back, and I said, "Did you get me out? How much did I lose?" He goes, "No, you made 600." So he swung the other way.
Talk about in the dark.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And I was like, "Well, don't sell it, Phil. Hang on to it." He goes, "Well, I already did." You know, this was total Laurel and Hardy stock trading. And I was trading options back then. So, you know, my first option trade was way back then at '79. And the problem, I did well. I made a 400% return on that money. So I took the 30 grand to a little over 150. And in '79, it was a lot of money. And I went a little crazy. I bought a new car, a new Mercedes. I bought a 4-wheel drive truck. I bought a half interest in a twin engine Baron because I'd gotten a license with a partner, and I bought a house. and I had money left to invest in an oil deal. So, you know, I thought I was living the dream. And the problem is the second year, I couldn't repeat it. I didn't know what I was doing. It was luck, and the market was on a tear, sort of GameStop type thing.
Yeah.
And I was in a stock called, it's Radio Shack now. It was Tandy back then. Was a leather company.
Candy, yeah.
Yeah. And you'd say, well, how could a leather company go on a tear? Well, they were inventing a computer called the TRS-80 while Steve Jobs was doing his thing. And, no one knew who was going to make it. And so obviously Steve Jobs made it and Radio Shack didn't. They scrapped it eventually. But that's what was driving the stock. And the funny part is I was in that stock over and over and over. I told my broker, just stay with that one stock, because I knew I didn't know what I was doing. And it was at the end of the year that he told me about the computer. So that entire time that I made the money, he didn't even know the story of the TRS-80 computer being built.
Wow.
That's how out of touch I was. So long story short, I realized that, I need to take the money out and put it into the real estate biz. And that's what I used to really get going and what have you. And it really was, another several decades. It's really been about 10 years since, through a mutual friend, I met a retired fund trader who grudgingly agreed to help me out. Right. I mean, it's not like he's got a course or anything, but he was a professional trader. He'd made tons of money. And it took a while and a couple of dinners for him to agree just to point some things out to me. And I said, okay, maybe that's enough. And, at this point, I had almost 30 years of being in the market, making money, losing money, same old story as most people. You're not consistent. You couldn't live off of it, and you're not living your dreams off it. So thank God for the real estate, but he worked with me long enough for me to put together what he was talking about, which was directional trading and catching turns, catching the bottoms when you're going long and catching the top and going short. Yeah. Not this meet in the middle of the trend thing, just the opposite, which, by the way, Paul Tudor Jones does exactly the same thing. He's sort of my idol, if you will. He started 40 years ago also, and he's worth $5 billion doing that. So he did it well. But anyway, he told me what I needed to do and said, use options for leverage. Do not do iron condors, debit credit put spreads, forget delta theta vega, applied volatility, extrinsic value, throw it all in the trash can. It's all for seminar guys to get your credit card. And I went, oh, well, I'm the guy that's been giving him the credit card for years. And, he started laughing. And so, directional trading, catch the turns. And he gave me a few tips on that. And basically told me something else that blew my mind, and that all indicators are the same. And I looked at him like he'd lost his mind. And I said, no, it can't be right. There's relative strength, stochastics, Williams percent R, Bollinger Bands. Every charting software has about 75 of them on there.
Yeah, right.
And so he took me to his computer and he put, a half dozen of them on there. And he said, okay, here's, Apple or whatever stock it was. And he goes, here's Apple turning up, and look down at all the indicators. They were all at the bottom and moving up. They moved up with the stock. Yeah. And then he said, now let's go to the top, and here's a big turn and a drop. And they were all at the top of the box moving down, following the stock, like, the Sherpa following you up the Himalayas. I said, man, that can't be right.
It can't be this simple.
Yeah.
I didn't want to believe that I'd read 100+ books and tried everything I tried all those indicators one by one, and sometimes combinations. I'm a little bit like a Rottweiler on a bone. I just don't give up. And, he convinced me in 5 minutes that, they have their place. But directional trading is about catching the turn, using simple tools, and having something repeatable. Yeah. Because if it's not repeatable, it's just worthless in his opinion, and I concur with that.
Yeah, I think one of the things that, and we're going to offer the listener a special discount at the end of the show if you want to learn when to buy and when to sell, which is the entire fucking game.
Well, can I just say this real quick? because I remember speaking with Randall, and he was kind of going back and forth, and he was very patient. And then, he asked me one time, he's like, "Look, man, when do you know when to buy something?" And I think obviously now I know, hindsight 2020, he set me up.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, because it's low, and it was just
And the news and
well, the news, well, of course,
they're coming out with a new product and
yeah, and I just felt, I think about a day or two later, like 10 times more stupid.
Oh yeah. It was the simplicity of your course was, I remember we took it on I think it was a Saturday and Sunday, and then Monday we were trading, and it was like, oh, well, that's a buy.
Yeah.
And that isn't. And we looked back over our portfolio before we took your class. Right. Oh, it was awful. Like the Friday just before we took your class, we ended up buying like 3 stocks, having no idea what the hell we were doing. Right. And
we were like blind squirrels and weren't getting any nuts.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but it was fun, wasn't it?
Yeah.
We
looked back on those trades, Steve. We went back, Randall. We looked at all our, because I had, just bought stuff over the previous year, and I looked at all the points and when we ever bought anything. It was just the absolute most terrible time we could have bought anything.
Worst time. Just stuck in them for years, Just couldn't get out because, we'd lost half our profit, and we're just hoping this thing, just goes up and recovers.
We were game stoppers.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you were. Yeah, there's a guy on the financial news channel on one of the deals. He's been around a long time, and he had Microsoft, and Microsoft went sideways for like 7 years in a box, never went anywhere. And he would tell that story like everybody there gives him a hard time because he's stuck in the damn thing, and he's just determined it's going to go up because he's owned it for 7 years. He can't sell it now. And that's the average trader they take the breakout strategy. So that is the most taught strategy on the planet and the most worthless strategy, in my opinion, period. I mean, you could teach a monkey how to do it, right? Just, okay, breakout, click buy. Really? So that's how you make, millions and hundreds of millions, billions. Now, there's obviously more to it. And the problem is it's easy for people to teach. And if it doesn't work, then most people leave thinking, well, maybe I wasn't smart enough to make it work. So everything that's out there is about complexity. But when you think about life, and this is when I talk to people, I always start with this and say, okay, what do you do when you get in a car? Well, start it. Yeah, you push a button, turn a key. But it's still a procedure. It's a methodology, if you will, because you can't put it in gear until you put your foot on the brake, right? Okay. But all of that's repeatable. What if one day a week that car wouldn't start and you didn't know what day it was going to be? Okay. Now you can't get to work, make a living if you've got a job. And how long would you keep the car? Well, you sell the damn thing in a week. It's not repeatable. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when we turn on a light switch, we may not know how to wire a house. I don't, even though I'm a home builder. I know the basics. I couldn't wire your house. I don't know the amps and build a panel out. But you don't need to. You flip it and you get the same reliable, repeatable result. Okay. How about go back to the car analogy? We're driving across town. Who came up with the colors? Red and green and yellow. I don't know, but everybody, we got a couple 100 million people. They're trained to stop on red, go on green. Not all of them, unfortunately.
I think one of them hit me about a year ago.
Yeah, right. But it's repeatable, right? Name me something all the way up to the Elon Musk rockets that are going to the space station and back. They're not only repeatable, he can land the damn things without them crashing and, without having to go in the ocean with a parachute. Repeatable. So anything worth value, Einstein had a saying out of his book, make everything as simple as possible, but not simpler. And when I read that, it really struck me because I'm thinking, wait a minute, this guy, EMC squared, smartest guy maybe to ever lived. What the hell is he doing saying something like make everything as simple as possible? But the way I interpret that is you got to make something as simple as possible to make it repeatable. Because if it's super complex with lots of different parts and algorithms and all the stuff people do in trading, it's going to be so different every day. You know, it's like every day is a whole new day of you learning to trade the stock market, and it's not repeatable. So I think you get anything repeatable, and my method is that it's simple, repeatable, but you don't want to dumb it down to where it doesn't work, right? I mean, we just want to get it. We want to harness that electricity to where you can flip that switch and you don't ever get shocked by it, right?
Yeah.
We
And
definitely repeat that process, like I would say on a daily basis between Steve and myself. It's you know, it's like I mean, we've been, how long has it been, Steve, that we've been kind of, following the process?
couple years, I think,
Yeah.
and it's gotten to the point like you just look at it and within 6 to 12 seconds, you can tell whether this is a buy or not, depending on how fast the screen can refresh as you click through a window. And it's like, oh, that's a buy, you know?
And all your listeners right now are scratching their head going, what the hell is he talking about?
Yeah. I was
trading.
It's simple. It takes a little work, but I think it's just because after you've been doing the process for so long, I think it becomes, easier and easier. Like we can almost like look at, whatever.
That's right.
And
that's right.
So it's just, in the beginning, it would, take us a bit longer, obviously, but now it's just so repeatable. It's like, okay, this is this and this is that. And, we can do everything pretty fast and go through it. It's pretty remarkable.
Yeah. Your class paid for itself by the end of that year. And now it's just, oh my God, I can't believe.
That's great to hear, guys.
It did. It paid for itself. Because I just want to point this out that I was very, I was apprehensive because I was that guy, looking at YouTube, people selling this and trying to find the best thing. And, I went matter of fact, I even went to you, Steve, and I said, hey, I got this Randall guy. I don't know. What do you think about this? And, we vetted a lot of programs, and I guess I just couldn't get over to the fact that you were in my hometown, Randall.
Yeah.
So, I was like, that's not possible.
Right. Isn't that the truth? Santa Barbara, what a place.
Well, terrible. Hey, all those people that moved to Texas from California.
Isn't that crazy? I know. My friends call me, when are you coming back? And I go, never. It's not happening.
I know, but everybody's freezing out there right now.
Yeah. That's global warming. No, I mean global freezing. I don't know.
Global freezing.
Something. But going back to the simplicity thing, think about it. When you were a kid, you couldn't ride a bike and somebody had to hold the seat. And if you were like me, you face planted and then you got back on. But a month later, you were whipping around the neighborhood. Okay, what about a car? If you, unless your dad had put you in his lap or something, my dad did, and we'd slide around country roads. So I knew how to broad slide before I went and took my test. But, most people don't know anything about a car. They're intimidated. But a year later, do you think about it? No, anything we learn, there's a process and a method. And this is interesting, I think, in that I've trained a number of military people all the way up to Navy SEALs, a whole squad of SEAls.
Oh, cool.
And yeah. And you got to be careful about, if you're going to sell courses out here and you're going to sell one to a SEAL, you damn sure better know it works, because do you really want that guy sneaking, through the window in the dark? And,
You'll never see it coming.
Your pool.
So I'm really good friends with them. Some of them come up to the house and go to dinner. Yeah, but here's what's interesting about the military. Think about this. They follow the training, right? You put the training out there, they accept it that it works, and they follow it. They don't change it. They don't fool with it. And okay, that's a plus. That's a huge plus, because that's what I say at the beginning, the training is you got to follow it. Number two, you need discipline. On the wrist side, right? As you guys know, we have a super small stop, so that we have a fixed stop. It's attached, and you can never blow up an account. If you started with 10 grand, you would have to lose 100 times in a row. Nobody's
I remember, Randall, you told me a few stories about I remember one guy, he was from up north, and he kept blowing up his account. And he's like, I think you finally kind of took him in a little bit. You told me his wife even had called you, and and you just finally taught him the way. But I think he lost so much money that he was so apprehensive about doing anything. So,
he drove from San Francisco all the way down,
that's right.
and his wife came with him. And so, we talked for 30 minutes, and he was, ready to go. He'd run out of questions, and she pulls a piece of paper out of her purse and unfolds it. And she gets up and just, puts it on my desk in front of me. And I looked at it and I went, 420 some odd thousand in red. And she goes, that's how much money my husband has lost over 5 years.
Wow.
Wow.
I went, oh,
Wow.
good God. And she goes, are you good at what you do? Because,
Well, it can't be any worse than him.
right. Yeah. So I said, I can guarantee you, you'll make money. I don't think I've ever had anybody not at least have one winning trade the first day. And we teach everybody to start on paper, but so it's that simple and straightforward. So I said, I can teach him. And he's turned out to be a great student. He's even driven back down and bought me dinner, and I got to know him. But I've heard some horror stories. One guy called me, lost 3.3 million. I mean, I could go on all day on it. It's just depressing. I don't like talking about it.
Yeah.
It's not the feel good stuff.
Yeah. But going back to the military guys, the thing that's interesting is, they're disciplined, they follow the training, and they got a good, solid mindset, right? In other words, they got a winning mindset, and that's huge in trading, okay? And so I was doing a Q&A, I don't know, a couple months ago, and I was on there, and one guy who was new jumped in there, and he said, hey, I'm doing everything, I think, exactly like I'm supposed to. And I'm even talking to our mind coach, Tamara, which we have. She's amazing to teach you how to run your subconscious and all that. And he goes, but, I still ended the week in the red. I didn't end with a profit. I couldn't believe it. And one guy jumped in there, a guy named Robert, and I hadn't talked to him in like a year. I remember he was a military guy, and he jumped in there and he said, CTM, brother. And nobody knew what he was talking about. And he goes, that stands for continue the mission. He goes, I'm over there in the Middle East or whatever, and we're being shot at or whatever. You fall back to your training, you keep a good attitude. I mean, what else are you going to do, right? Yeah. You can't fold up your tent. And continue the mission. He said, keep going, you're new. He goes, he jumped out there and he said, I'm a little over a year and a quarter since I started. My account's up over 600%.
Wow.
Whoa. Yeah. Blew me away. I didn't even talk to him. He didn't even call me. And so here's another twist on that. The SEAL guys, because of their job, they may be on a mission or whatever, they can't trade during the day. So they can't trade the stocks and the stock options that we do. And so on the first one, I said, well, I don't know what to tell you then. I don't think we should move forward. And he said, how about futures? I went, well, yeah, I mean, what I teach, you can trade anything with a chart, futures, crypto, it doesn't matter. Everything goes up and down. And he goes, yeah, okay, I'll start on futures. I said, well, hold up, take a step back here. That's a sandbox where, the big boys play, right? Guys worth $1 billion and what have you. It's a faster paced game. And he goes, yeah, I think I can handle it. I went, okay. Right. Again, you got to promise not to come, kill me if this thing doesn't work. And he said, yeah, I'll be fine. And he's done amazingly well. In fact, they all have. So what I've taken away from that, in fact, I've even started to quiz them on, tell me more about your mindset as you go through, the boot camp thing that they go through, right? Hell Week, where they're carrying the logs and all that. And I said, how do you feel when one of the guys can't hold the log anymore and he hangs it up and he goes over and rings the bell, right? That means they're done. And I said, how'd you feel when you heard that? Were you worried or something? He goes, hell no. He goes, it's just one less guy to hold the log. Now the damn thing's even heavier. and he goes, and the best part is it's one less guy, because they start with about 70 and end up with like 25. And he goes, every time that bell rung, it was the sweetest sound, because he said, I know I'm not giving up. So
Getting closer.
they come in with that attitude. And if you come in with that attitude and combine it with my training, you become unstoppable. Have you ever read that book called Relentless?
We both read it within the last week or week and a half. Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was
You
actually a
recommended
very
it,
good book.
and we listened.
Did you know about Tim Grover? Did you know he was
No.
Michael Jordan's coach for 15 years? Because I
didn't know that he trained Kobe. He worked with
Dwayne Wade.
Dwayne
He worked
Wade.
with
you name it, right?
Yeah, he worked with Charles Barkley, Akeem Olajuwon. Yeah, he worked with those. Yeah, I was like, how come I've never heard of this guy?
Yeah. So
Closers, coolers, and cleaners.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
I
You
know.
want to be the cleaner. Be the cleaner.
And so LeBron is not a cleaner. He's a closer, but not a cleaner.
But not a cleaner, yeah.
But
it's a great book. Great book. I know. I thought what I really got out of it was, the pressure and stress, and basically, by people not being put in pressure situations.
Right.
You're not doing something. You need to put yourself under pressure. It talks about the difference between stress and pressure, and breaks it all down. And I thought it was really good.
Yeah, here's the other thing that jumped out at me too, is that I didn't know Michael Jordan had a coach outside of the Bulls, because obviously the Bulls got the finest trainers and staff, and what does he need an outside coach? But that was his coach for 15 years, and his main coach. He didn't use the trainers there at all. He used this guy, Tim Grover. And so one thing I learned from my mentor in the markets is there's nobody in this game that hasn't had a mentor and somebody that knows how to do it. So if you read Market Wizards, right, really popular series, Jack Swager wrote it. And over the 5 or 6 book series, he interviewed about 60 of the world's greatest traders. And 2 things in common. One, they all failed at first, and then they met their mentor. Every one of them had a mentor, no exception. Number 2, they all use our stop loss rule of 1%, and they only accept small losses. They had just those 2 things in common. And then because of personalities, and there are, many styles and ways to trade, but they were all directional traders. In other words, they wanted to be in Apple when it went up, and they wanted to be in Netflix. And so institutional people, the hedge fund guys and whatever, they don't trade anything under $20. It's too small. They buy millions of shares at a time. They would end up owning the company and be a CEO rather than a hedge fund trader. Yeah. So they can't. And they if it starts at 20 and doubles to 40, they start to get interested. And if it goes from 40 to 80, more of them will get fired up. And 80 to 160, they all start piling in. And that's what drives it from 160 to 320. And Amazon started at 45 and went to 3,000. And guys, we didn't run it up there buying 40 shares of Amazon. They got $3.3 trillion, and that's what moves the market. And so, as you guys know, we just trade leading stocks, and that's one of the problems I see out there when people call me. Is I say, well, how many stocks you trading? Well, I've got the list down to about 50. Well, I trade 8, and really I focus on 4 of the 8 and have for 10 years. And they go, no, that's not possible. So what they're doing is just scanning all day and chasing the new, ice cream flavor of the week, like GameStop, which went up and then went down 85%. And if you bought anywhere up there at the top, you just got annihilated, right?
Yeah. One of the guys at work told me the other day that he got into GameStop at 300 and he was excited. And I said, you did what? He's all, yeah, I'm going to write it out. And I'm like,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I know somebody else who bought it in the couple hundreds. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. It's so much simpler than it should be. The guy that trained me had helped me out. My mentor had a couple of PhDs, believe it or not. And I asked him about that, and he said they were more of a hindrance than anything. He goes, it has nothing to do with price action. It's not a game of intelligence. And it's just, it's a game of being in the right stocks and learning to, catch the turns. And and then knowing to get out and having small stop, and I went, God, it can't be that simple.
Yeah.
And it turns out it was. And I'll give you a good example of it. We got a guy here in Santa Barbara, works at Trader Joe's, and I met him out walking the dogs one day, and he said, yeah, I walk dogs for people. And I said, well, hey, that'd be good, because I've got these two labs, and the black lab is just crazy, young and just full of energy, needs to be walked for an hour a day. And, it's hard to fit that in a schedule. So I hired him to, come once a week. Anyway, long story short, he asked me what I did, and I told him I didn't train him. He hadn't taken the training, but I put him on that path of go with these particular stocks, small stops, and, ride them up 20% if you're going to do just the stock without options and what have you. He started with 10 grand. That was 3 years ago. His account's up to 107 grand.
Wow.
Wow.
For him.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's he was just doing stocks himself, right? Like,
Yeah. Stocks only, right through Robinhood. Yeah. And he didn't do Robinhood because he knew. He and I, we talk all the time, and he's a smart guy. He's picked up little things here and there, and he's not real good on entries, so he has to have a bigger stop than what we do. But nevertheless, he's got that directional trading thing down, and his account's up 1,000%. I mean, it's
that kind of sounds like us, Steve.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
Yep.
right.
yeah. We use that. Yeah, we use that on. I actually have to admit something that I used a little bit of we used a little bit of that on that AMC and made out pretty well.
We did, yeah. Daniel caught it. I can't take credit for that one. It was no foresight that Reddit was going to take over or anything like that. We just we saw what you taught us on that stock, and I'm like, well, that's a buy. And all right, so we threw I think it was like one fifth of 1% of our bankroll on it, and it went up to 5, and then after hours it was at 6, and then at 8, and then before I went to bed that night I went to 12, and when I woke up at 6 o'clock in the morning it was at 21, and I was like, oh my God. We have to I don't know what happened, but we have to get out of this right now.
Yeah, I got a phone call.
Yeah. Oh my God,
We sold it at 17. Yeah, we got rid of that 17.
Yeah, I got out at I was clicking sell as fast, and there were so many backlog orders. I thought I sold at 21, and when I finally found out what I got the price at, it was $16.50, and I'm like, $2 to $16.50 in 5 days. I'll take that.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I was hoping for 20-30% maybe.
Yeah.
Well, that was with Randall taught it.
It was exactly what you taught us. Yeah, we didn't do any of the news or anything. We just looked at the graph and we're like, yeah, that's a buy. I'll take that all day long.
Well, there's no better job on the planet. There really isn't. It's an amazing thing. Everybody wants to do it, and yet, unfortunately, it has a 90% failure rate, and so you think about all those courses and all that stuff out there, and the horror stories that I've heard. It's terrible. In other words, I started when there was no internet, no information, no whatever. So it would seem logically, with all of that information now at our fingertips, it would be 1,000 times easier to trade, and yet the failure rate is the same. In fact, I remember back in 1980, Phil, the broker that I had, we're still in touch to this day. He ended up going in the oil business, and he told me about a stat there at Merrill Lynch. We were talking about customers, and he said, well, we don't want to get to know them or care about them unless they got 100 million, right? And then we'll just keep taking commissions off of them. And I said, what are you talking about? And he goes, the average account lasts 3 to 6 months. He goes, half of them are they've either lost half their money or all of their money, and they're done within 3 months. The other half makes it 3 more months, and something like 97% of them are gone in 6 months.
Wow.
So what's the point, right? That guy's not going to be around. No point in even learning his name. And I looked that up about 10 years ago, and what I could find was pointing to the same stats. It's nuts.
Yeah. There's a lot of similarities between this and We got a lot of poker player listeners, and it's the same with cards. 95% of the people that sit down at a poker table are not winning players. Only
Right.
5% of the crowd actually can even make money at the game.
That's
So
right.
the professionals make up 1 or 2% of the crowd, if even that.
Yep.
And a lot of these bets are very similar. It's the kind of thing where it folds to you, and you have pocket kings. You're
Right.
going to bet it. You're not guaranteed to win, but you're probably 75 or 80%. So to not make a bet there would be a huge mistake.
That's right.
And it's the same thing.
Yeah.
If you're looking at a setup and all bets are not looking good, well, you're trying to force a hand like 8-6 offsuit or something, and you're
Yeah.
going up against pocket queens. It's just
Yeah.
a
Inside
horrible bet.
straight. Inside
but
straight, looking at 3 queens. Yeah, I mean, it's
right.
the odds are horrible. And it's when I drove concrete trucks, it rains a lot in Houston. The weather's crazy, as everybody knows. And so whenever it rained, we'd go in what they call the doghouse, just a metal shed, and we'd wait 2 or 3 hours. And if the rain didn't stop, they'd send us home. And so I played more poker in those 7 years than you could play in lifetimes.
That's awesome.
And
Metal
got
shed
paid.
poker.
Yeah, I got paid a whopping $1.10 an hour. I mean, I was cooking, right? But so there were 2 guys in there, 2 drivers and I was a pretty good poker player. My grandpa taught me at age 5, and I always loved cards, but I couldn't beat either one of these guys, not ever. I mean, I'd never run into that. And I'd gotten so good that even, in high school, we'd have the friendly game and whatever. And it got to the point that my buddies quit calling me to tell me when the game was because they take all their money. Son of a gun. So, I mean, that's just wrong, right? Yeah, but anyway, I got to know one of them real well. We became buddies. And I said, how is it that I'm a really good poker player and I can't beat you at all? And he looked at me and he goes, Randall, I can see your tail wagging when you have a good hand. Geez, what the hell does that mean, James? And he just smiled and he said, well, where I grew up in my hood, he goes, we played a lot of cards, a lot of games, and most everybody had a pistol in the pocket, and there's always 1 or 2 trying to cheat. It was a pretty rough environment, and you had to learn, how to play. It's just a game of odds and knowing when to bet. And he really explained it well. And so we became friends. And whenever everybody else would drop out, it'd just be me and him go head to head. He would just check each one so that I could learn from him because I knew I couldn't beat him.
Yeah.
In poker, you can bluff, unlike the market. And I never could figure out when he was bluffing and when he wasn't. It was crazy. But I also went to a casino with him shortly thereafter, and he won on the crap tables. He could pretty much win at any game he played. It was nuts. So it turns out he actually played professionally, but he drove the concrete trucks, I guess, for the IRS or whatever, right? That was a legitimate job.
He looked good on paper.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're still good friends to this day, and he's still just that good. The markets are odds. I had an engineer that worked for AT&T for 14 years, went to college. Dad was a Marine, good guy, played a little football, but, really worked hard, and they loved him at AT&T, but the state he was in, they were doing cutbacks and they laid him off. And he'd been trying to learn the trade for 4 years. He'd been burned. He had just paid somebody $20,000. It didn't work again. And he found me and we talked, and he decided to sign up and go. And he came out of the gate pretty fast. He'd really been studying hard for those 4 years. But he did those things we talked about. He literally followed the training like a Navy SEAL to a T. And he was able to almost make his salary back the first year, which was I was making $110, a year. He didn't quite make it there, but that was 2 years ago. Last year, he made almost $500,000.
Wow.
And I said, well, send me one of your best trade log for the last 6 months. He sent me one in August. So he was starting with 40 grand every month, because that allows him to do 40 contracts. and he ran 40 to 136 grand. So he made 96 grand or 242% in August.
Wow.
Part of that $500,000.
Wow.
So you think about the percentage returns, it's like, you can't even talk to people about that. If people bring that up and they call me, I just go, it's more than you even want to talk about. You'd think I was nuts if I told you, that you could make 400 or 500% in a year, but you can. And he did it. So he's actually helping me out, co-teaching a little bit, because we've got this new level of training now called ambassador training. So I've only got the 2 levels, the 5,000 to get started, and then the other one is 50,000. You may not have even heard of that, guys. It's somewhat newer, and it's people can't even believe this part, but it's the exact same training. Well, why would you pay 50 grand, when you get it for 5? Well, the difference is what you're getting. You're paying me 25 up front, and you're paying me 25 out of your first 100,000 in profits. So I don't get paid the other half of the money if I don't teach you to make that 100 grand. And people like that, they see it as motivating me, which you guys know me. I don't need that. I'm going to teach you, I'm going to give you everything I got. But that's what we do. And the difference between the two is you get me on 1 hour Zooms. You get Herschel, the guy I just told you about, who's helping me out, on 1 hour Zoom calls. And you get Tamara for 10 hours as well. So you're getting a 1-year mentorship.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, people, I've already done 3 or 4 of them, and people are really, really liking it. And I don't think there's anything out there in the industry like it. So we'll see how it goes.
I haven't seen anything like that. And essentially it's kind of free after a year.
Yeah.
Right?
You get paid. It's like you pays you back.
After you make 100K, then you give back 25. So you're still ahead 50.
And if you make 100K and you paid me 50, you still have 50 left. Did it really cost you any money? I mean, no, it's all in the perspective, isn't it? Investment, Warren Buffett, I think, averaged 14% his whole career. No way, he got 60 billion with 14% a year. But, it's all in the perspective. He knew what he was doing. There's a method to everything that you need to learn. And the problem in trading is people with that method don't want to share it normally.
True.
Right? They just don't. There's no motivation because you're making too much money. And it's a shame, because what they're missing is you meet the greatest people. I met you guys, Herschel, I've trained SEAL, doctors, you name it, football players. I mean, it's just been the coolest 6 years of my life in that regard. So
that's cool.
It's a shame more of them don't do it. Yeah.
Your class got me. I played poker semi-professionally, making about 15% of my annual income from playing cards, and I'm at the point now of doing that with stocks. It's taken me 2 years, but I've gotten to that point, and I still play cards. I mean, I went out to Laughlin last month and played, I think, 6 poker tournaments and won 2 of them and got a second place and a third, and so I'm still very good at
man.
poker.
Wow, that's great.
But I have so much more fun playing stocks. After doing cards for 15 years, I think I was ready for a change, and really it's the same game. It's the same game. It's bankroll management. You just do one. If you feel really strongly on something, sometimes you can double down and maybe do 2% of your bankroll. But if it's really flighty, like AMC was, maybe 1/5 of 1%. But it's the same thing. It's just odds and bankroll management and having the gambling mindset of just a cleaner. I love it. It's so much fun. It's fun.
You're a cleaner. I mean, it's, trade and learn is the motto that I tell everybody. And that, what also might have helped you make that change is there's no other business like this. I mean, real estate was great to me, but I couldn't say, okay, I built this house, market value is $1 million, I'm going to make 150, great deal. But I couldn't say, okay, you know what? I want 2 million for it. I mean, not going to happen. Okay. It's worth what someone will pay. And if that's market value to $1 million, that's what you get. But in trading, as you guys know, if you start with a $10,000 account, you're trading 10 contracts. And let's say you make an average of $300-400 on an Apple trade. That's about average on one trade. Okay. What happens when you double your account to 20 grand, and now you can trade 20 contracts based on our risk guide? Then that Apple trade isn't 400 anymore, it's 800, but it's the same entry, it's the same risk management, and it's the same trade management, but you got double.
Yeah.
And then when you go to 40 contracts and 80, you know what I mean? There's no other industry or business on the planet. I keep asking people, name me one where you can just double your income like that. And I can't. Can y'all think of one?
You can't do it with poker, because when you double your stakes in poker, the competition is like 4 times as good.
Yeah.
So,
World championship table.
Yeah, you cannot do that in cards.
Oh man, yeah, you don't want to do that. Texas Slim, Amarillo Slim, wasn't that the guy who come out of retirement and come play?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So hey, just so we're clear, Randall. So just want to talk a little bit about your course, and because you basically after a weekend of training, I mean you're trading. I mean you can trade that next week. That following Monday. I mean we were off to the races. So I just want to let everybody know that. I mean you're ready to go in a pretty short period of time.
Yeah. And that surprises people. But again, I go, well, how long it take to learn to ride that bike, drive that car? It doesn't take long to learn anything. It takes a while to be good at something, right? I mean, anybody can walk up and hit a golf ball, but you can't go and play Dustin Johnson in a tournament. So the bottom line is, yes, the training is simple. It's 11 hours of video. It's really comprised of those 3 things: the entry, the method, which I could teach somebody in 30 minutes, but I spend 5 hours. And then the risk, which we spend a couple hours, and then trade management, which we spend about 3 hours showing you, the 3 ways we use to hang on to winning trades. So that's what makes up those 11 hours of video. And then what's really critical, I think, for people to know is the support is there, and that you're going to get a constant stream of videos, past Q&A sessions, all sorts of stuff that reinforces it. And unlike anything else out there where it seems like a new day, a new method every time you turn on the monitor, we do the same thing. We start the car, turn on the light switch. We're doing the same thing. So every video, it's, a little redundant, but that's what you want. Because if, for a SEAL to be a marksman, he's got to go pop 1,000 rounds at the range, not 50 like we do at a box. He doesn't do 1,000. And then, the guy may walk up and go, you suck, another 1,000 rounds, and they do another 1,000. And you're going to get better when you do something over and over like that. Yeah. So,
and you send out emails as well.
Randall, with videos on them, and
with videos on them, and that's actually helped us.
Yeah. I profile. Did it yesterday. I sent out the SPY. We had 9 setups yesterday.
Wow.
On the SPY, and we actually had 10 today. 10 setups, and there's no way that you can not make some money on that with the ratio. As y'all know, the ratio is the key to this whole thing. So let's walk through that real quick, because people are always stunned when I talk to them on the phone about this. They don't get it because it's not in the books. But let's take 10 trades and let's follow our program where you start with 10 grand, and if you have a loss, it's going to be $100. It's an automatic stop in there. And if you're right, we're going to try to make about 300. You might make 200, you might make 600, but let's use 300 as a number. So winning 300, losing 100. And let's take a 50% win rate. So we win 5 and we lose 5. Okay. We lost 5 trades. That's $500. We're down. And we won 5 at 300. That's 1,500 minus the 500 losses. We got $1,000 net gain with a 50% win rate. Yeah. So people, I think, are real confused about that, and that I got to win all the time. No, you don't.
No, you don't.
You can win. I have days of 35% win rates, and I make a lot of money because the losses are always small and the wins are bigger. It's just that simple.
Yeah. and the software allows you to kick out, you know, if it just quickly
Yeah.
drops it, boom, you know, you're not, you know, stuck.
Yeah, I ask people like, what's your definition of a professional trader? And when people call me, I've only had one or two people even get close to it, but mine is, and I think any professional would agree with this, the definition of a professional stock option, whatever, futures, it's all the same. The definition is they average more in their winners than they average on the losers. Because if you flip that around and your average losers are bigger than your average winners, you're a losing trader. You don't have any money left at the end of the week, you know?
Yeah.
So if I'm winning 300 on average and losing 100, my wins are averaging more than my losses. I really can't lose over time. It doesn't mean you can't have an off day where you're, you know, out of sync with the market, but I'm talking about over time. That's what allowed Herschel to make 96 grand and some change with a $40,000 account in 1 month, just doing that.
Yeah.
Crazy, isn't it?
Many numbers.
Yeah. It's an awesome program. And
thanks. I really appreciate that, man.
Yeah, it's helped us. I mean, you know, we want to go forward, and, you know, obviously we've been wanting to take another course with you as well, but yeah, it's worked out, you know, really well. You know, we're just really, you know, busy and stuff, but we've just taken, you know, what we learned from you, and, you know, it's worked out great for us so far. And I just want to say that, you know, like within the first year, you know, it pays for itself, which is, I can't really speak for a lot of things that do that.
Yeah, you're right. Not many things well, I mean, you think about the investment world. So you can, you know, take my course for $5,000 and people go, wow, $5,000. I go, well, yeah, but how about if we look at it as an investment? So I spent, you know, 25 years in real estate and buying investment property, and I made millions doing it. And so my question to them is, I'll give you $5,000, and where are you going to put that in real estate? What can you buy?
Tough shed.
Yeah, I don't know. Tough shed in Alabama.
Yeah, that rental house in I don't know, Milwaukee, where they'll give it to you because everybody's, you know, shooting each other. I mean, there's, you know, there are no. Let's say you found a deal. How much money would you make on it a month? Could you make $50-$100? Okay, and that's it. Your $5,000 is done. And so, I mean, you know, there's anything I can think of that you can start with. Look at the debt that doctors take on, and lawyers, and, you know, things like that. So really, it's an investment if you see it that way, and if you apply yourself to it. You know, if you don't, if you treat it just like, you know, a weekend in Vegas, then yeah, it's a waste of time and money. And, you know, I don't even want to be part of that, really. So I try to, you know, talk to people and make sure they're serious about this and they have the time to do it. Because if they do, I think, you know, they'll get the results, and they'll see it as an investment. So Herschel paid that amount. He did not take the, you know, master training, wasn't around back then. And, you know, making 96 grand a month. I mean, how does he look at $5,000, right?
Yeah. It's like $1.
Yeah.
And for our listeners, if they mention that Daniel and I sent them, then you're giving them 20% off. So the cost will be $4,000. So that makes it just a little bit sweeter.
Yep. You bet. Be happy to do that. And like I said, I've been just, you know, love meeting you guys and really appreciate y'all inviting me on a podcast. I've never been on one, so this has really been exciting for me. And, you know, I want to teach more people. I kind of walk on a fence on that, and then I've already got the lifestyle that most people want. And so time is important, right? I don't have enough time to teach the world, right?
Yeah.
But I do want to teach more people, and so I'm always looking for somebody who is passionate about wanting to learn and do it, that kind of thing. You know, Big John, my real estate mentor, I was talking to him one day before he backed me in the home building, and I said, hey, I want some of those commercial properties like you got. And he said, well, you don't know shit about money. I said, well, you just sold me some properties. I mean, and, you know, you're carrying the paper on them. They were owner financed, right? You know? And he laughed and he goes, how many minutes in a day? And I've never had anybody be able to answer that. You can't do the math in your head, even if you're good at math. It's a weird deal. And he was an engineer also, which he never actually, went out there as an engineer, in the trade, right? His sister was a doctor and called him one day and said, "Hey, this guy's got a ranch. He's real wealthy and he wants a metal barn. And you're an engineer. Why don't you go build him one?" And John said, "Yeah, I'll do that. I don't really want to be an engineer anyway." And he did. And so that's what he did, is he built metal buildings all over Texas. And oh my God. But he asked me that question, how many minutes in a day? And I'll let your guests figure out the math on that. You can do it. But that's not what's important. He was sending me a message. Everything he said was cryptic in a way. And it took me, he didn't tell me what. So, we smoked a cigar and I left. And I thought about it overnight and it hit me. He's trying to tell me that he has the same 24 hours in a day as I do. And he's worth 50 million. I was worth a couple back then. And, he's saying, if you want to reach your goals and you want to be worth 50 million, you've got to do certain things a certain way. You got to have a methodology that works and you got to know how to apply it. Right. Because, Bezos only has 24 hours in a day and he's only worth what, $250 billion or.
Yeah, something ridiculous. It's
insane, right?
Stupid money.
Yeah. Is that even real? Yeah.
It's like buying planets.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
He's moved from islands to buying moons and planets. You're right.
Yeah.
I'll take a
maybe
moon
he'll buy
for,
Mars from Musk. Yeah, Musk will settle to him. Yeah, you get your own.
Yeah,
planet.
him and Elon Musk are just they're like divvying up the
The solar system.
The solar system.
Yeah. Well, that's a good video for people to watch. Anybody that is a trader, poker player out there, watch that Elon Musk video about his life. I don't have a link to it, but you can just type it in, and there's several of them that are about 30 minutes. And what I took away from that is the guy doesn't see limitations, right? He has no limited thinking. He thinks everything's possible. And when you think about it, everything that's ever been invented worth a damn was someone told him you can't do it. Well, wait, I can fly like a bird, Wright brothers. No, you can't. You've been drinking, man. No, I can fly, Okay, we wouldn't have airplanes, right? And cars and on and on and on, computers, right? You're always told you can't do it. And Musk is one of those guys, I think, that doesn't see any limitations anywhere. He just sees something that he needs to find a solution. And what I've found through the years, most of those guys do is they don't work hard at trying to solve that problem. It's not about a sweat thing at all. It's about like, hey, let's turn that problem over to a higher power. And you know what? In the middle of taking a shower or they wake up in the morning, all of a sudden, bam, they got it. They got that light bulb. They got the way to build that plane. And we've got this new, groundbreaking invention that comes out of it. So I think, trading is a lot like that. That's why we have a mind coach. She teaches our traders how to run their subconscious and get rid of any limitations, because we all grew up with limited thinking. Our parents did the best they could. And unless you grew up, with Elon Musk as a dad or Bezos, then, you ask your mom or dad, hey, can I have $20? No, hell no. Go mow the lawn. We don't have a money tree. And you look out the window and, this money's hard to get. These grown-ups don't want to let go of those little green bills, man. So we start with limited thinking, and then we go to the educational system, and it's more limited thinking. They are training you to have a 9-to-5 job. That's all they're doing. They're not teaching you how to think, right? How to use, the greater powers out there. And really that, if you think about it, that's what drives everything. I tell people what happens, you jump off the roof 100 times in a row, you're not going to float up one of those times because gravity never takes a day off. So these greater laws of nature are what create the movements in price action and trading. And wouldn't you all agree? They're sort of like waves in an ocean, right? Yeah. You got a trough and a peak, trough and a peak, and we never run out of waves. Right?
It's a Charlie Brown. It's
a
Charlie Brown. Right?
Even when things crash, they just, it's just more like a tidal wave.
I like that analogy. Charlie Brown. Yeah.
It's a Charlie Brown shirt.
Yeah, we we
Yeah.
reference that quite a bit. Yeah, the Charlie Brown,
Yeah.
Charlie Brown pattern.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But,
Well, it's true. It's all in the way that you think about it. Going back to my real estate mentor, when he threw that statement down there and I saw that 50 million, my whole world changed, right? I didn't know you could be worth $50 million, right? I didn't know wealthy people. And you see them at a distance, but you don't see yourself doing it. And all of a sudden, I'm sitting here talking to a guy that's done it. And I think what happens for some of us, I think all of us, and again, unless we've had a wealthy set of parents, we build our own walls around, we build our own prison, so to speak.
Yep.
We build those limitations in. And so if I can't get a trader through it, our mind coach Tamara does. And the thing is, okay, everybody's got some blocks on the trail, but we're either going to go around it, jump over it, or we're going to smash through the damn thing. We are going forward. We're going to continue the mission, and you're going to get better. And that's the attitude.
Yeah.
Hey, Randall, just a quick question. Are you still offering, for people, like a level 1 and a level 2 kind of course as well, or is it just kind of a level 1?
Yeah, it's the 2 levels, which is the $5,000 training. And again, it is the exact same training, which is 11 hours of video and then the support. And the only difference between that and the ambassador thing for 50 grand is that you're getting me on the Zoom calls and Herschel and Tamara. And so in the 5,000, you're not getting me on a Zoom call every week like they do. Right. Yeah. And you're not getting Tamara. You can hire Tamara, and lots of our traders do. I think it's 175 an hour or something like that. And she's so good at this. I don't know if y'all know it. She's so modest, but the last time I was in Austin, we went to dinner and she gave me a book and it said the 50 greatest investor traders or whatever of all time in the US. And she said, here, open this page up. She dog-eared it and said, I want you to see Arnold in there. And I looked, and the guy has the second longest money management track record in the US. He's a billionaire. And I said, okay. I mean, you're not a trader. You teach my traders, but what's the deal? And she goes, well, one of my clients said, hey, you need to meet this guy. And she's single. She was thinking, like a date. She's like, no, I don't need to meet anybody. And they went, no, he's like 80 and stuff, and he's a billionaire. And he told me that he got wealthy by the use of his subconscious and the way that he ran his brain. And her client was saying, that's what you've been teaching me, so I think y'all ought to meet. So anyway, Tamara gets introduced to Arnold, who is a billionaire, and he loves her and takes her under his wing. Think about that. I don't know any billionaires that I can pick up the phone, but last time I was talking to her, he was calling in and she's like, oh, I got to go. It's Arnold. I go, yeah, you got to go, man.
There's more important people on the phone, Randall.
Yeah. What am I, Swiss cheese? I mean, damn. But he's so interesting. I'm going to get to meet him this COVID. I haven't been able to fly to Texas and go play golf with my buddies, but I will. And she's going to introduce me to him. And everybody knows, well, not everybody, but remember the story of Anne Frank, the girl that lived in the attic, Nazi occupation, right? Okay. He was 1 block over in the attic with his parents too.
Oh,
Same
wow.
thing. Yeah. Oh, yeah, man. The parents actually put him and his brother on a train with fake passports because they were afraid that, if you sneezed, right, or the neighbor turns you in, they're going to be dead. I mean, they're obviously Jewish, and they did get out and they got reunited. He did make it here to the States. His parents survived all that and went to college and then started his own fund and became a billionaire. An amazing freaking life story. Wow, and so, and that's who's Tamara's under that guy's wing, as if she wasn't already good enough at it. So
a new book. Arnold Arnold Frank.
Yeah, I can't wait to meet him. Right? He's
cool.
In fact, I'll send you guys the link to the video. I want you to watch it. It's a talk he does at some university, and it's
okay. I'd love to. Yeah,
we will. We'll put it in the show notes so the listeners can watch it too.
Oh, fantastic! Oh,
yeah,
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll
That'd be
do that
great.
for sure. Yeah, I think they'll enjoy it.
A quick question, Randall, before we wrap up. I want to get your opinion on the real estate market, kind of in general speaking, right now. What are your thoughts with COVID and, the forbearance that's going on?
Sure.
What,
Seller's market, buyer's market kind of thing, what are
Yeah.
we going into?
yeah, what, just
Yeah.
throw your 2 cents in here. What do you think?
Well, I view it exactly the same way as the stock market. And people say, well, how's the market different from 79, 40 years ago? And I go, it's not. It's exactly the same. It's driven by human nature and people. Yeah, there's more volume. There was only a dozen hedge funds. Now there's 10,000 and there were, 3.3 trillion. But real estate is the same thing, right? It's been the most popular vehicle for building wealth for forever, really the last 100 years. And so my first student, this is how I got into teaching, right? My golf buddy back in Austin asked me to help his son, Michael. And I said, Neil, just shut up and hit the golf ball, right? I'm not a teacher. I don't have a course, man. I finally figured out how to do this. Anyway, long story short, he kept nagging me and I taught Michael, and Michael's still trading. And that's what got this teaching thing started. I never set out to do this. But like I said, it's been an amazing journey. But here's the real estate part. Michael calls me after a couple of years. He's making good money and he wants to buy a rental house. And, what do I do? And I said, well, I can coach you in that, right? I got, 25 years owning rental property, had my own property management company, et cetera. And his idea was to turn them into Airbnbs. And I said, great, you're already thinking creatively. Fantastic. I'll coach you in the buy-in deal. So what I did is I bought and rehabbed things. I wanted to buy the ugly duckling on the block and being a contractor and fix it up. And that way the value immediately went up. I could raise the rent and the thing was profitable right out of the gate and had equity right out of the gate. Okay, that was my cookie cutter formula. Michael was not a contractor, but he figured it out watching YouTubes, and I coached him a little bit in that. And so he's got 8 of them now. But here's my view in the market. Back then, I knew we hadn't had it yet. So I said, I can guarantee you've got 5 to 7 years. Go buy real estate. And even if it turns over, just quit buying it and just collect the rent money. And then when the market dips, buy property, because that's what I did in Houston. When Houston crashed in 85, I started in 86 buying my first property. They were giving it away. It was literally, I was buying them for the replacement cost of insurance. So, if I bought a $500,000 house, I bought it at $250. If it burned down, I would get $300,000 from the insurance company and make $50,000. I was buying where I couldn't lose money. So anyway, he went out and did that. So my take is the first thing to go when the market rolls over is high-end real estate. So I built all that back then as a high-end home builder, and I was a spec builder. So you couldn't hire me. I had the architect, I built it, had the plan, and then I put a sign out front. I either sold it or I'd, go broke if I couldn't sell them. So I had to learn about cycles in real estate. And when the market rolls over, wealthy people don't need to buy that $1 million house because they already got 2 or 3 or maybe 8. They don't need another one. They're doing it because they want to buy one, right? And we're not anywhere close to that. We've got these millennials who are starting to buy, and you can look at Sherwin-Williams and look at the stock. I post that on Twitter every 6 months to a year, and it makes a new high. And I go, well, take a look, folks. Every house needs paint. I spent millions of dollars with Sherwin-Williams, over decades. And, the market is strong. And if the stock market rolls over, yeah, it's going to put a damper on real estate. No question about it. But is that in the future? I don't know. I'll say this about the future. When I had the corporate job, they hired a consultant. He had taken Baker Hughes, the old Howard Hughes company, right? Famous guy. Took it from 10 million in sales to $1 billion in sales in 10 years. Really brilliant guy. I was really intimidated by this guy. Yeah. And so I remember we were doing this corporate projection 5 years in the meeting, and he kind of started chuckling. And I was like, what's going on? He's like, nobody can see 5 years out. So many things can happen. He goes, a 1-year plan is good, and you should really focus and execute on that. And yeah, have a second year for sure. And the 5-year plan is just for, corporate walks, just to have meetings and, look like they're smart. So nobody can see what's going to happen. But if the market rolls over, yes, real estate will roll over. But what makes market roll over? There's about 5 things that have to happen. One is higher interest rates. And look at the interest rates. They're the lowest they've been in 50 years. Okay. They got to go up a bunch. And on average, it's 6 interest rate hikes before you get a crack in the dam. Okay. That's just one of the things that starts happening. And there's 4 other things that go on top of that. Too long to go into, in this forum, but it takes some time. Once that happens and the interest rates start going up, it's normally between a year and 18 months before we go into a bear. So even if those things start happening, and none of those things are happening now, you're a minimum of probably 18 months away. So I would say, we're going to be making money going long for at least the next 2 or 3 years at the very least. And we're going to probably have a blow off like we did in 98, 99. And if you think GameStop was fun, you haven't seen anything compared to what'll happen.
Interesting.
Nice.
Right on. Cool. Well, thank you, Randall.
And awesome.
If you guys want to take Randall's course, we're going to put a link in the show notes, or you can call him directly, 805-837-9211.